Welcome to the Next Wave podcast. I'm Matt Wolf, and today I'm joined once again by Matthew Berman, one of the sharpest minds covering AI and the creator behind Forward Future Live, a show that's become an absolute must-watch for anyone trying to make sense of where artificial intelligence is really headed. Matt's been on the front lines at major tech events like Dreamforce and Boxworks, talking directly with the people building the future. And in this episode, we're gonna dig into some of the biggest developments from the past week. Everything from Adobe's new AI tools and what they mean for creative pros, to Nvidia's massive expansion and its surprising political moves, to OpenAI's bold new timeline for creating a self-improving AI researcher. We also dive into one of the most viral tech stories of the year, the neo-humanoid robot, and whether we're actually ready to have one of them in our own homes or not. It's a fun, fast-moving conversation packed with insights, hot takes, and a few wild predictions about where AI and robotics are headed next. So let's just jump on over and chat with Matthew Berman. Hey, Matt, welcome back to the show. Great to have you again.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I am very grateful to be here again. I always like talking about AI with you.
There's really four sort of events this week that were kind of going on in the AI sphere, right? You had Adobe Max, which was going on in LA. You had Nvidia GTC, Washington, DC.
And of course, Jensen did another 2-hour keynote.
Yeah. There was also TechCrunch Disrupt, which we'll talk about briefly. And then also OpenAI did a live session that was sort of like a surprise session this week where they talked about their nonprofit and some of their timelines and all of that kind of stuff. So those are some of the avenues I want to go down. There was also the Neo robot.
Over 50 million views on X alone. So something has resonated. I am excited to talk about that with you.
Well, I'll just kind of go through the list real quick. So Adobe Max happened this week. They announced like a conversational AI assistant, right? So like you'll be able to go into Photoshop pretty soon and just tell it, edit this image so the guy's wearing a banana on his head, or edit this image so that the background is the beach instead of, the desert or whatever, right? So it's gonna, like, they're adding in this like conversational chat assistant. I think they saw like the success of Nano Banana and a lot of these like AI editing tools and then went, let's just build that into our tools and sort of like get ahead of the narrative. They also announced that they're going to be doing some like custom fine tuning for enterprises and for companies. So if you want like a Firefly model trained on your branding, your imagery, like your color scheme, that sort of stuff, they will fine tune a Firefly image model for you.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. It does seem like there's an existential threat to Adobe's business, right?
Right.
I mean, we have Nano Banana. We have, a plethora of other image generation models, and it's so easy to use. But then we have Photoshop, which, you have to actually learn the tool. You can't just speak in natural language. So I totally understand rolling out features that allow anybody to actually apply that technique of just prompting to some kind of amazing generation within Photoshop. It makes a ton of sense. It's interesting because they really are serving two separate audiences with that.
I feel like Photoshop should probably stay that suite of tools for like the professionals that want to use those tools. I'm really not a fan of Adobe's business model either, right? Like they've got the monthly billing and then like there's actual fees to cancel it. Now, it just creates this really crappy narrative around Adobe where everybody just thinks Adobe is this like evil company that's like trying to like extort you for as much money as possible. The other thing I was going to say about Adobe that'll probably get me in trouble with Adobe is we did an episode here on The Next Wave where we did like our tier list where we went like, S tier all the way down to like F tier of like image models. Out of all the models we talked about, Adobe Firefly was the only one that fell into F tier.
Do you think this new crop of generative image models is going to eat the lunch of Adobe Photoshop specifically?
It does feel like whenever this stuff comes out, Adobe's trying to stay ahead of it and go, let's just bake it into our software. But I feel like we're going to quickly get to a point where like, well, why do I need to pay for Adobe to get that feature if I can just do it, directly on the Seedream website or directly on the, Google AI Studio with Nano Banana? I don't know. I do think there's going to still always be that subset of people that are like, I love really getting into like the granular details and like dialing in this composition that I have in my mind. But I also feel like Adobe is sort of like isolating those people, because those are the types of people that tend to be more on the anti-AI side, right? Like the people that really like to use Photoshop for what it's designed for and get granular. Those are the people that are like, I hate AI, and if Adobe's going to roll AI into Photoshop,
right,
I'm going to use a tool that's not going to use AI.
The delineation between these different types of products, whether it's image generation or Photoshop more for professionals, they're going to start to get blurred and they're going to start to look a lot alike.
Yep.
And it's going to enable a huge new crop of users and tinkers to really make incredible things. But ultimately, and this is what I've really realized lately, taste and the ability to curate an amazing human experience, whether that is the design or an actual physical experience, that's going to matter more than anything, and so much more going forward. Of course, like the first thing that comes to mind is the Rick Rubin meme, right? So like that, the ability to really know your taste and know who it serves and actually have good taste in a world where anybody can create incredible visuals is going to be so important.
I invest in a lot of stocks of companies that are making big moves in AI. Adobe is not one of the companies I've put money into. Well, I'm gonna shift over to TechCrunch Disrupt. That was where I was the past few days. So my perspective on TechCrunch Disrupt, like what it was essentially a whole bunch of like fairly new startups. There was a couple big companies represented. It feels like most of them are there because they want to raise capital. So they're just kind of putting out as many feelers as they can and talking to as many people as they can. And then they also do like this startup battle where founders get up on stage and sort of pitch their idea. And then it gets narrowed down until they pick their one finalist, probably most famously seen in Silicon Valley when
I'm so happy you brought that up, Matt. Oh, that was like peak TechCrunch Disrupt, peak kind of Silicon Valley culture. And for those of you watching who haven't seen that show, Silicon Valley, highly recommended.
It is a good watch and pretty accurate to the event. I would say that Silicon Valley made out TechCrunch Disrupt to be a much bigger event than it actually is in real life. But other than that, pretty accurate.
Yeah, it may have been more culturally relevant back then. It's slightly less now.
Yeah, when I was there, I was fairly underwhelmed.
Yeah, and I don't think we're the only ones thinking it was underwhelming and maybe not worth the time. I don't know if you want to show Gary Tan's tweet.
So this was Gary's tweet. TechCrunch Disrupt is a terrible waste of time, and I don't understand why any of you would go to it. Well, I'll tell you why I was there. I was sponsored. JetBrains sponsored me to come out and film their session that they gave, and then also film around their booth and make some content around JetBrains. So I was there specifically for JetBrains, but had I not been paid to be there, would I go back next year? Probably not.
Yeah. There's a legacy to it. I think one little coder down below as a reply is like, that's pretty prescient. TechCrunch after Michael Arrington, the founder of TechCrunch, sold is generally PR newswire, just a way to get your news out there and nothing more than that.
Hey, if you take a look at my web presence online, it's safe to say that I'm a bit AI obsessed. I even have a podcast all about AI that you're watching right now. I've gone down multiple rabbit holes with AI and done countless hours of research on the newest AI tools every single week. Well, I've done it again, and I just dropped my list of my favorite AI tools. I've done all the research on what's been working for me, my favorite use cases, and more. So if you want to steal my favorite tools and use them for yourself, now you can. You can get it at the link in the description below. Now back to the show. The other event I wanted to chat about quickly was we had Nvidia GTC in Washington, D.C. this week as well. It was a tough week because I was invited to 3 out of these 4 events, Adobe, TechCrunch, and Nvidia, and ended up going to TechCrunch, and probably from the videos and footage I saw from the other 2 would have selected to go to one of the other 2 had I had the option. But during the Nvidia GTC, you've probably seen more of the keynote than I have. I actually have not had an opportunity to watch it yet. But the big things for me that came out of it were the new IGX Thor, which is like the brain that they're trying to put into like robots and things like that. And then also, this is something I don't totally understand. You might know a little bit more about it, but it seemed powerful just in his explanation, was the open source aerial software, which is going to create this like AI native 6G wireless network. It's a little bit over my head, I'll be totally honest. But those were the two things that sort of grabbed my attention from his keynote. But I'm curious, like what you saw in the keynote.
I think the news that stood out to me was they're taking a huge stake in Nokia. First of all, okay, I didn't know Nokia was still around. That's cool. I definitely had one of those Nokia bricks that lasted years and played Snake on. And so that was surprising. They invested $1 billion, if I remember correctly. They got a chunk of equity from them, or I should say stock, because I believe it's a public company. And it seems like Nvidia is making these investments into so many different companies. And it goes back to this like kind of roundabout profit and revenue cycle that we're seeing. So I think another good example is Nvidia invested $100 billion into OpenAI. And then OpenAI is going to take that money and essentially spend it on Nvidia chips. And so I'm like, I'm trying to, like the country's economy. But like, aren't we double counting dollars at this point? And so they've done a number of these types of investments. There have been a lot of memes, a lot of graphs showing the very incestuous nature of these top tech companies, whether it's frontier labs or hardware creators like AMD and Nvidia. But I just thought, so to bring it back to Nokia, it's interesting to see what they're going to do there. They did say, speaking of 6G, that that's something they're working on with Nokia, if I remember correctly.
Interesting. Is Nokia still making phones? Is that still their model, or have they moved on to something else? Are they like making phone chips? Like, I'm not actually quite sure what Nokia is doing, because I don't think I've seen a Nokia phone on the market anytime recently.
They sold their mobile phone business to Microsoft.
So Nokia is owned by Microsoft now?
Their mobile phone business is Microsoft. I don't even think it's like branded Nokia anymore, but I'm not sure.
That's something that's definitely fascinated me about like Nvidia, is Nvidia's strategy of investing in these various companies, but then that investment money turning around and essentially buying Nvidia chips.
Yeah. And they just passed $5 trillion, right? They passed $5 trillion in the value of the stock.
That's absolutely wild to see. And I'm going to be honest, I know there's talk about an AI bubble, and there probably is an AI bubble, but I feel like Nvidia is one of the companies that's going to make it through.
There's been a lot of talk of AI bubble lately. And the way I see it, and obviously, look, I've dedicated my working life to AI at this point. The potential value of artificial intelligence seems nearly infinite to me. It just seems like there's so much that can be done. So even if we're over investing today in infrastructure, in models, if most companies have bigger inference bills than what they're actually charging customers, I think all this math is going to work out in the end. And of course, there's an analogy to be drawn in kind of the early and mid 2010s, where companies like Uber, Airbnb, Lyft, these companies were just burning through VC capital, subsidizing rides, subsidizing housing, and they made it, right? And there's 1,000 examples of those that didn't, but the VC math is typically overinvest, capture the market, and then monetize more based on business fundamentals later on.
Yeah. I mean, didn't Amazon lose money for like 20 years or something like that?
Exactly. And all they had to do was turn the dial, and all of a sudden they had margins. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think like maybe we're in a mini bubble, but in the long run, I just don't think we're going to see this huge drop like a .com bubble. And there's been a number of interesting tweets about this, where if you look at the price earnings, we're nowhere near the .com era.
Yeah. You were showing me that graph, I think last Friday when we were doing a live stream together. It's really, really interesting to me. Did you hear that like Nvidia's now got a stake in Intel, which is something that I never saw coming either?
I didn't see that.
Yeah. Nvidia
I know the US government has a stake in Intel, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah, well, that's probably why Nvidia went in. Let's be honest. They probably saw the government got invested in Intel, and Nvidia's like, all right, we're in as well. And, I mentioned that that GTC, the second version of GTC this year, was in Washington, D.C. Well, I think they did that for like political reasons. I think he did that to be close to Trump. Obviously, Jensen, from what I understand during his keynote, was very, favorable towards Trump and how Trump is handling things, and seem to be fairly
Well, of course.
okay
Look,
with the whole China situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Zuckerberg is probably the most prominent example of this, of just doing a 180. And these guys who lead these the Mag 7, they are incredibly bright. Ultimately they'll do whatever it takes to make the company successful. And if that means kissing the ring of the current administration or whatever the next administration is, they will do that. And whether they believe it or not doesn't really matter. They're going to do it. And that is how they're currying favor with the administration.
Yeah. I mean, seeing like Tim Cook hand that whatever that was, that clear disc thing to Trump. And I think Jensen handed Trump a signed, I don't know, one of his signed GPUs or something. I don't remember what he gave him, but he gave him something to get in his favor. But yeah, no, it's really interesting to see how this is all playing out, because I would have thought that Jensen would really be fighting for the business in China, but he seems to be okay just sort of letting that go.
Yeah, well, I assume he's still going to be fighting. I think China's making it difficult to sell into China, though, because they see the writing on the wall. They know that if they build their AI infrastructure on top of US chips and software, they are going to be at a disadvantage and beholden to the US. And of course, they don't want that.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. Well, let's talk quickly, too, about the OpenAI event that happened this week. So they did sort of what would you call the live stream? Just sort of like an update, like a sort of state of OpenAI kind of update thing.
Yeah, it felt like ad hoc. I don't know. I mean, obviously they had been planning it a while, but it just felt like out of nowhere. And then, there was kind of a few minutes about an overview of, it was kind of very technical. Jakob Pachaki was there with Sam Altman, Jakob being the chief scientist, I believe is his title. And then they did a Q&A.
Yeah. So Sam went to X and posted this TLDR. I'm not going to read the whole thing because even his TLDR could use a TLDR. But some of the things that they said here: 5 layers of safety, value alignment, goal alignment, reliability, adversarial robustness, system safety.
Honestly, if you could scroll up for a second, Matt, I think the first line, we have set internal goals. If you want to read that is crazy important to me.
All right, let's see. So we have set internal goals of having an automated AI research intern by September of 2026, running on hundreds of thousands of GPUs, and a true automated AI researcher by March of 2028. We may totally fail at this goal, but given the extraordinary potential impacts, we think it is in the public interest to be transparent about this. So in the talk of AGI, it sounds like Sam Altman has the belief that AGI is coming before 2028, but an automated AI researcher by March of 2028. Wouldn't that be kind of, if AGI comes sooner than that, wouldn't the AI researcher also come sooner than that? You know what I mean?
There's so much to unpack from this one paragraph here. So first, he does not mention AGI, and I actually think that's important to your point. They have ironed out a new relationship, a new dynamic, a new deal with Microsoft. And a big part of the original deal with Microsoft was Microsoft had ownership of OpenAI's IP up until they hit AGI. Now, AGI was such an amorphous term. It was a moving goalpost. Nobody truly knows what AGI means or how to measure it. So kind of ignored that. So there's 2 other things I want to point out here. One, these are incredibly specific dates for saying that they're going to have something like an AI researcher, an automated AI researcher, September 2026. Okay, that's, not too far away, but it is a very precise date. The one that blew my mind is March 2028 to have a true automated AI researcher. It is a specific month within a specific year. It just seems wild. What does Sam Altman know to have such a precise prediction of that timeline? Now, the last thing that I want to point out is once a company has a true automated AI researcher, that he didn't say any of this, but I'm going to infer that also means you're going to have self-improving artificial intelligence. And once you have self-improving artificial intelligence, the only limiter for really just an explosion of intelligence, to use the situational awareness paper, is how much compute can you throw at it? Right? And so it seems to me, if you have these, handful of companies racing towards whatever that goal is, the self-improving AI seems to be really the only goal that matters, because once one of the companies hits that goal, they are forever in the lead.
Right.
And it just seems very obvious to me that, I know Zuckerberg is heading towards that. He calls it artificial superintelligence. Sam Altman is calling it an automated AI researcher. But they're all talking about the same thing. They're talking about this point at which AI can improve itself.
Right. And to me, that's also the point where, AI has the potential to be the, quote unquote, runaway AI, right? That's the point where AI, if it's self-improving, it might start to figure out, like, that's where the sort of paperclip maximizer theoretical experiments come into play. Is, okay, well, I'm sort of optimizing for this goal. So what do I have to do to achieve the goal? Possibly at the expense of everything else. That's where things get scary. The reason I bring up AGI is, I know Sam Altman did an interview last year. Maybe he was just being hype Altman, right? But in an interview last year, when somebody said, "What are you excited for in 2025?" He said, "I'm excited about AGI in 2025," right? Something along those lines. He said, "I'm excited about AGI next year." So he almost implied last year that he thought we'd have AGI this year. And now he's saying, the automated AI researcher by March of 2028, which seems like if you have AGI before March of 2028, like, would you consider AGI to be that, like, are those the same level, AGI and self-improving AI? Like, would you see those as sort of like being the same thing, or are those two different milestones?
Based on my understanding, they are two completely different milestones. Maybe not completely different, but they are very different. And so when he says AGI, if we're using his and OpenAI's kind of previous definition of AGI, it is, I'm not going to get the words exactly right, but it's essentially when AI can accomplish most economically valuable work better than the average or most humans. Right. I butchered it a little bit, but I think that was the definition. And I actually do think we're almost there. Granted, we have 2 more months left in this year, so we'll see. But I think he got to a point with the Microsoft relationship where he couldn't really use or have a hard definition of AGI. Now, going towards like self-improving artificial intelligence, a true AI researcher, that seems very different. That is when AI can discover novel algorithms and new ways to build silicon and then apply it to itself. It becomes more powerful, and thus the next piece of research just happens more quickly or becomes even a more important discovery. So I do think those are two very different things, and AGI in the context of his previous definition does seem like it is right around the corner. And in fact, a lot of these models, the core intelligence of the models, I think we're there. I just think we're now needing to build the scaffolding and the implementation around it, which seems to be lagging by about 18 months. So the core intelligence of the model is there for AGI. We just need to go implement it now. So I don't think he was wrong with his predictions. It's just the terms, the definitions that he's using are pretty amorphous.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I remember you were doing you were at Dreamforce this year doing your Forward Future Live during Dreamforce. And one of the terms I kept on hearing you bring up over and over again was capability overhang.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it sounds to me like that's kind of what you're referring to here, right? It's actually smarter than what most people are using it for right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. The models are extremely capable. The scaffolding around them, the tools, memory, tool use, access to different information sources, all of that stuff still needs to continue to be built out.
Yeah. And along the same lines here, I just pulled up this article. Both OpenAI and Microsoft posted this article on their website about the next chapter of Microsoft OpenAI partnership, which ties into what we're saying, because they basically said once AGI is declared by OpenAI, the declaration will now be verified by an independent expert panel. So they're going to put together some sort of panel to decide, okay, did OpenAI actually achieve AGI? So, I mean, it's still subjective, but it's now left up to the subjectivity of this panel as opposed to like Sam Altman just claiming we got AGI.
Interesting. I think so. This just came out, right? This is a post
A couple
from just
days ago.
yeah. Oh, interesting. So maybe I got that wrong. Actually, I thought the whole notion of you get the IP, Microsoft, OpenAI says you get the IP until we declare AGI, but it seems like they still do have that kind of going up to this paragraph. I can read real quick. The agreement preserves key elements that have fueled this successful partnership, meaning OpenAI remains Microsoft's frontier model partner. Okay. Microsoft continues to have exclusive IP rights and Azure API exclusivity until AGI. I did not, I might have made a mistake there. I thought they had removed that part of the agreement, but it seems like they just clarified that OpenAI alone doesn't get to declare it, although they do get to declare when it happens.
They declare it, and then an independent panel verifies it.
Right. And so let's look at the incentives here. OpenAI is incentivized to declare AGI as soon as possible because they do not want to give Microsoft exclusive IP rights, right? They don't want Azure to be to have exclusivity. Any exclusivity is bad generally for a company. And so OpenAI is definitely incentivized to claim AGI, and they could have done so at any moment, but now they actually have to have a third party validate it. And what that validation is based on, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. But it does say here, Microsoft's IP rights for both models and products are extended through 2032 and now include models post AGI with appropriate safety guardrails. So basically it sounds like their agreement goes through 2032 regardless of AGI.
I'm immediately thinking of the Megamind meme and Satya Nadella just playing 4D chess. This is
yeah. I mean, it seems like Microsoft worked out a pretty nice deal for this. Although it does say
all the leverage. I'm not surprised.
Microsoft's IP rights now exclude OpenAI's consumer hardware. So whatever they end up making with Johnny Ive, if they ever do get into robotics, that's going to be outside of Microsoft's scope. I do remember there was a little bit of tension around when Microsoft was approaching Windsurf to acquire when OpenAI approached Windsurf to acquire Windsurf. It seemed like it was Microsoft that got that deal shut down, right? Like Microsoft went, oh, you're buying Windsurf? Well, because of our agreement, that means we'll also own a portion of Windsurf. And OpenAI didn't like that. But it does sound like there's no exclusions for like acquired software from OpenAI, just consumer hardware.
Yeah, and again, like Microsoft just had all the leverage here. They invested and got all of these terms before OpenAI was OpenAI. All right.
Yeah.
They I think it was 2017. And by the way, did you see Satya recently did an interview in which he said Bill Gates thought we were just burning $1 billion on that investment in OpenAI, which is like, no.
I didn't see that.
Oh my God. Even the most prominent tech minds in our multiple generations get stuff wrong. Nobody really knows what's going on. And maybe except for Satya. Satya seems to be just operating on another level.
He does. Yeah. Also, Microsoft can now independently pursue AGI alone or in partnership with third parties. So, I mean, OpenAI and Microsoft are competitors now in the race to AGI.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to be competitors on almost every dimension, right? They're OpenAI's building hardware. OpenAI, because of it, it's just like a completely new way to write and build software. They can compete with every piece of Microsoft software all the way down to the operating system level. I truly believe this. Microsoft sees OpenAI as an existential threat, but they're also a partner. They're like, keep your enemies close type thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to move on to, let's talk about the robots real quick here. Let's talk about
robots.
So we've got the Neo Home robot, which you can actually pre-order for a $200 deposit. This is, I actually saw, did you see this one at CES? They actually had this one at CES and they were doing like a demo of it, like vacuuming a living room kind of thing.
No, I think I missed that.
Yeah, so I saw this one is just interesting because it's like a robot wearing clothes to kind of hide the fact that it's a robot. So This one you probably know a little bit more about. I didn't really catch this announcement when it happened, but do you want to quickly fill me in on what's got you excited about the Neo robot?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really like the first time a company has officially opened orders for a robot that you can buy and have in your home today, with the exception of Unitree.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen like
Chinese company.
You see like streamers and stuff that have like the Unitree robot. Like, I don't know if you saw the Kai Cenat one where they were like pushing it around and stuff.
It was awesome. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely possible to buy it, but you're going to be buying it from China and everything that comes with that. So this is the first US company that you're able to actually buy a humanoid robot that is supposed to do chores around your house. It is built for your house. They show off a bunch of examples: cleaning, welcoming guests by opening the door, doing laundry, cooking food, potentially getting medication for you. I mean, there's 1,000 use cases. And their launch video, as I mentioned earlier, went absolutely mega viral. 50 million plus views just on X alone, not including YouTube and Instagram and everywhere else they probably launched. Now, Joanna Stern, I believe her name is, actually had an in-person review and demo of this robot. Turns out it is 100% teleoperated. And what that means is there is somebody wearing VR goggles with, maybe some handset of some sort, operating the robot. So it is not yet true artificial intelligence inside the robot. Now, that is not to take anything away from this accomplishment. It is wild to think just a few years ago this was a complete pipe dream, and now we actually have working humanoid robots that seem to be quite impressive.
Yeah.
MKBHD just launched a video yesterday talking about how a lot of tech companies are now over-promising and under-delivering. This is kind of another prime example. And then even like within tech, within AI, it's even more prominent that companies are over-promising, under-delivering. Of course, he was talking about the rabbit and I forgot the little pin. Yeah, humane pin, right. And so once again, the demos so far today it showed that it is 100% teleoperated. In the demo video, there were 2 different scenes in which it was fully autonomous. That's great. But the promise is it is going to be, the majority of uses is going to be autonomous. They said they're going to be delivering this I think delivering it by the beginning of next year.
Yeah, so it says right here, U.S. deliveries begin in 2026, starting with early access customers. It doesn't say when in 2026. It just says in 2026.
Anytime. Okay, so they basically have over a year to start delivering this. I put in a pre-order, by the way. I'm super excited. I tend to be very optimistic. I like thinking that this stuff is going to work, but of course, like that last 10, 20%, like they got the robot, it works great, it moves well, but that last 10 to 20% always is the hard part, and I think it's very analogous to self-driving. Elon and Tesla have been talking about delivering full self-driving, actually fully capable self-driving for over a decade. And we're now just kind of like starting to get to somewhere that it feels like, okay, he's delivering on that promise, but it was, a year away at all for the last decade. It seems really cool. I'm into it. The part that is maybe a little worrisome for me is if I have this humanoid robot in my house and it's not able to do things autonomously, there's going to be somebody else operating this robot, seeing into my house, doing things in my house, and that
interesting. Okay, I didn't catch that
the right way.
I didn't catch that when you said it the first time. So basically, I understood that they're teleoperating it, but I assume that was for the demos. But like, if you get one of these and put it in your house, somebody's going to be teleoperating it while it cleans your house?
Yeah, so it's in the FAQs, but basically what happens if you give it a task and it is not able to accomplish it autonomously, which most likely is going to be a lot of tasks in the early days, you can schedule a time with their teleoperators for them to accomplish the task. Now, the hope is by the teleoperator accomplishing the task through Neo will learn and not need a teleoperator for subsequent tasks.
Right.
But again, you are giving permission for this person running this robot that's capable of lifting 150 pounds, by the way, to operate in your house which is just, it's wild. I don't know if I feel more uncomfortable with having an autonomous robot doing that or somebody operating it. I think it's the latter, though.
Yeah, I think operating is creepier. Like somebody operating it is creepier to me. That like somebody is looking around in my house, like know where I put my wallet, things like that. Yeah, but on the flip side of the coin, if you're looking at like one silver lining, everybody keeps on saying AI is going to create new jobs. This is a new job that didn't exist, teleoperating robots for people.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think about the look? What do you think about the design of the robot?
I think, honestly, it's one of the less cool robots that I've seen.
What makes you say that?
To me, it looks like a giant human-sized teddy bear or something.
Do you remember like a few years ago, Elon Musk went on stage to announce Optimus, and they had a bunch of people with like Optimus single like outfits on dancing? It feels like that, but there is actually a robot under it. For me, like having the very soft look wrapped in cloth, and just it looks a little, I don't know. It's not my design aesthetic that I would choose. When I see Figures robot, that is what I want robots to look like. I want to see the metal and the different
I agree.
materials.
That's where I'm at too. This to me looks like it's from like a Tim Burton movie or something, if I'm being honest.
Oh yeah, totally.
But anybody who's wondering, I just looked up the price here. So you can buy one for 20 grand, or there's a subscription for $500 a month. So like if you can't afford the 20 grand up front, you could basically like rent one of these robots to live in your house.
So Matt, let's assume this is all going to work out. It's going to deliver on its promise. Whether that happens or not, let's make that assumption. The 20K price point is very interesting. That is essentially the lowest priced car in the United States is a little bit, I think it's 18,000. So it is essentially a very inexpensive car. Plus, if you start layering on financing options, it really becomes something that I think a broad portion of the population can afford. $500 a month. Okay, that seems like a lot of money, but imagine how much time you will save not having to clean up, not having to do the dishes, not having to tidy. And I guess all of these use cases are really cleaning, but I just think that the price point was the most compelling aspect of this launch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I figure if you hire like a housekeeper, right? Like, and let's say they come once a week, you're probably going to pay $500 a month for that housekeeper to come once a week. This is something that is there every day, right? So if you were to hire a private chef, right, that's a whole additional cost. If you were to hire a housekeeper, that's an additional cost. Like if you were to hire out all of the individual things that this one robot theoretically will be able to do for you, this is actually the more economical option, it seems.
Did you pre-order?
I haven't yet, but I probably will. I mean, it's $200, so I'll probably. I tend to pre-order pretty much every new tech gadget that comes out. So
I had a feeling, I put in the pre-order. I'm gonna go with the early access because that's what I want, and I want to show it off on camera. So, okay.
My Neo robot, after I learned the third worlder piloting them, is mad chill. He's just playing video games with them, and the house is a mess.
Excellent. Just hanging out. Yeah.
What we got here? Day 2 of cleaning after humans.
My robot is gonna see things. Let's just say that.
Yeah, we've got kids. They'll be our robots are most likely to turn on humans because of what they have to see.
Yeah. But yeah, this is hilarious. I think this is a whole new category of meme, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, this has been absolutely amazing. I love having you on because you and I can nerd out about AI forever. I feel like every time we have a conversation, it always ends the same way. I feel like we could talk about this stuff forever.
Oh, yeah. We could easily keep going for another 2 hours next time.
Well, we'll definitely have you back on if you're willing to come back on and do this again. But it's been a blast. And I'm really loving what you're doing with the Forward Future Live. I love the live shows. I love the booth you set up at Dreamforce, and you had one at what was the other event you set up? Oh yeah, Voxworks. Yeah, I mean, I love those live streams that you're doing and you're rotating through guests and stuff. Really, really, really cool.
Yeah, we have to have you back on. Speaking of.
It's a blast. It's a blast. So thanks so much. Any place you want to shout out? Obviously, everybody needs to check out Matthew Berman on YouTube. Check out Forward Future. That's where he does the live show, Forward Future Live as well. Anywhere else people should go after listening to this?
Follow. So if you can just click on the Forward Future Twitter thing right below Nick Wentz on the right side of the screen. Just follow us at @forward_future_. We're working on getting a better handle, but for now it is that. Follow us at Forward Future.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thanks so much, and looking forward to doing it again with you in the future.
All right. Thank you.